Afternoon for everyone joining this special event for the Center for Disaster and Mitigation and Management, IIT Roorkee. Before I start, I just want to give a special thanks to Professor Manojan Parida, Deputy Director, IIT Roorkee, Dean Sixer, and Dr. Manish Shikande, and Mr. Ashish Kulkarni and Tanya from Untitled. Really, it's a delight for me to invite and welcome you all in the center. And with that, also, I would like to thank all the faculty from our IIT Roorkee colleagues, Dr. Pant and Dr. Devedi, Dr. Agarwal, Dr. Mukherjee, and Dr. Das also. So all the faculty and the students who have been joining here. It's really a pleasure for me to introduce the Center for Excellence in Disaster Mitigation and Management to you all. The center at IIT Roorkee basically started in 2005 as a response of the government of India to accomplish a risk resilient society through participatory technology capacity building. From that onwards, the center has been serving as a resource for professional development and student resource development in terms of diverse discipline to address real life problems through innovative research, collaboration, and education. So talking about diverse discipline, our center is basically been having a associate and a joint faculty from diverse disciplines, from earthquake, from hydrology, from earth science, from architecture, and all of the management side. So we have a lot of diverse from the faculty from different departments. We do have one core faculty in the center. We are really privileged to have Professor Siva Krishnan also, who's working in the landslide area. And we also do have our inspired faculty at the center, Dr. Piyush Srivastava, who works in the atmospheric sciences. With that in mind, basically our strength is basically our students. And our students basically have been really doing a lot of good work in the area of disaster mitigation and management. We do have around 25 plus PhD students in our center. And we have almost 19 MTech students working in different areas of disaster mitigation and management. So just talking about this, today's event is basically a excitement and as well as like basically a achievement for our center and for IIT Roorkee to develop a academic industry partnership with Ernst & Young because it's focused on the core area of the COP26. And because as we all know that the climate change is really having a high impact on the communities which are really facing the real problem of climate change and weather extremes. And that's where I really see that there are majorly two areas where our center and IIT Roorkee can really work with Ernst & Young. It's about the focusing on the loss and damage, where Ernst & Young really works on the finances and different areas, as well as on the area of adaptation and resilience. So I really look forward to have a long-term strengthened collaboration with the Ernst & Young, with IIT Roorkee, and really look forward to have a lot of good opportunities for our students also to work with you all as an intern, as a job perspective, as well as for our faculty to develop bigger proposals in research area to work together. So with this, a few words, I would like to welcome again everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your encouraging words. We are extremely delighted with the presence of Professor Manoranjan Parida, Deputy Director of IIT Roorkee. Now I'd like to invite Professor Parida to share his visions on the industrial academia.
Good afternoon, everyone. So first, I would like to thank COEDMN for this invitation to be part of this MOU signing ceremony, forging partnership with E&Y. I would like to extend a warm welcome to Mr. Ashish Kulkarni and Ms. Tanya, those who have been personally present for this particular program. These kind of partnership are going to go a very long way, and my colleagues at COEDMM, they have been always very aggressive, I can say, in terms of developing strategic alliance, developing such kind of strategic partnership. And at IIT Roorkee, we have created 3 centers of excellence. One of the centers is the Center of Excellence Disaster Mitigation Management, then Center for Nanotechnology and Center for Transportation Systems. And the essential agenda for all the centers was that they need to have a multidisciplinary approach. You can see like today we have Professor Sumit Sen from hydrology, who is the HOD of CODMM. Formerly it was Professor Mohammed Mukherjee with the Department of Architecture and Planning background. But all of them very committed to work in the area of resilience, disaster mitigation and management. And I see with this partnership, there are great opportunities, especially like today we have Professor Vinay Sharma. And I see that we need to hold these opportunities in terms of just not placements, but internships are very much valuable. In our master's program, it is written like the internship is optional, which is in between second semester and third semester. But students, those who are opting for internship, eventually they land up in the same company because they try to put their best, and at the same time it opens a communication channel with the particular industry. We have tried a couple of examples, and that's why intentionally like Professor Vinay Sharma's unit earlier used to be known as training and placement, but now it is known as placement and internship with strong focus on internship. So which is very important, and with like Ernst and Young, I'm sure, and I know they have many good projects, and our students immediately after coursework, when they are working for such internship, they get the true industry orientation. And at the same time, like the doctoral students, Professor Sen talked about the many doctoral students, it's always possible to also work on certain problems which is with E and Y. So it's just not going to be a purely blue sky kind of research. It could be a problem-driven research. So this partnership can help us to think in terms of that. And at the same time, I'll say many times, like if you are in consulting organization, you do things which is very similar to research. There is opportunity for coming back to the campus. After 12 years, they say that many of the professionals, they need not be full-time, but still they can also work for PhD. There are requirements. So those kind of possibilities are there, like professionals from E&Y can explore the possibility of pursuing a PhD program at the center. And as Professor Sen rightly said, for multilateral projects which are sponsored by multilateral agencies, we can bid together. Those kind of we have like abilities both within the like center, plus there are other departments also. Depending on the nature of the project, we can bring in experts, and I'm sure like this partnership will go a long way. And on behalf of institute, I say that we'll provide all kinds of support, whatever is required to strengthen it and use it to the best possible manner. So once again, thank you all for this opportunity to speak and share my words. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your well thought out words. Now I'd like to invite Professor Manish Srikhande, Plain Sponsored Research and Industrial Consultancy, to share his visions on IITR sponsored research.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to address this gathering. And I'm particularly delighted to note the presence of our colleagues and partners from E&Y in this meeting. And they have taken pains, as Professor Parida pointed out, to travel to Roorkee. Coming to Roorkee is not so easy. I mean, I'm sure you will agree now. And that actually shows the investment, personal investment that E&Y is putting in this partnership effort. So the sponsored research and industrial consultancy at IIT Roorkee is the nodal point where we outreach to outside agencies. And the whole idea is sponsored research is to further our own knowledge frontiers, to develop new knowledge, new technology. And over a last couple of years, we have tried to reorient our research direction towards a more application based. Now we are increasingly consciously making effort to improve the technology readiness level of our research outcomes so that we can actually translate some of, our research efforts, not just limited to being limited to just academic research, they should actually see the light of the day. And I keep telling my students every time that there cannot be any greater satisfaction for an engineer than seeing his design working in field. I mean, research publication is one thing, but seeing a prototype, working prototype, gives a satisfaction that is not matched by anything else. So, and that actually works all across the discipline. Engineering product is one thing, but across disciplines, it is a similar kind of satisfaction if you find an application of your research ideas which actually finds a practical implementation. That is a very, very satisfying moment for all academicians. And for that purpose, we do need partnerships with industrial partners. And that is where I greatly value and I welcome this initiative of Center for Disaster Mitigation, Center of Excellence. Sorry for missing the excellence part. So, certain things are taken for granted, so it just drops out. So, this initiative, welcome initiative to further this partnership with industrial partners, and I'm sure this E&Y will lead to association with E&Y will lead to many meaningful and implementable research outcomes in the center and in the institute in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind and encouraging words. Today with us, we have Mr. Ashish Kulkarni from Ernst & Young. Mr. Ashish is an associate partner with EY, leading the clean energy, environment, and climate change practice in India. He has about 2 decades of experience in the climate change mitigation and adaptation sector across low carbon growth strategies and technologies. Mr. Ashish co-leads Green Climate Fund account from EY and has been superheading all climate finance projects and initiatives in the organizations. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Ashish Kulkarni to share his visions on the Industrial Academia.
So very good afternoon to everyone. I would like to really thank and I'm filled with gratitude to all the professors over here present. Can't take individually everyone's name, but I'm very grateful to IIT Roorkee and the center for having invited us. And this is a great pleasure for us to, and a very proud moment, I would say that we have been able to reach this place despite all the adversities which we faced in times of COVID. And we started this initiative around 8 months back, took quite a lot of back and forth, and here we are. And it is our endeavor that we will certainly take it to the next level. And this industry academia partnership is something that we really look forward taking it to fruition through some exciting projects together. And there is a need for it. because at the end of the day, we as as industry, we do some research, but there are certain gaps which cannot be filled, which the academia can fill in those gaps, and it's all the more required. But the need is coming from the grounds up. It's not something that we are pushing, but the need is coming from grounds up. Cities, states, countries, everyone is required today to have a holistic and a more comprehensive solution rather than what we do on a project to project basis, a very short term basis. These are instances where we require long term solutions to emerge. And for that to happen, there needs to be a base which is strong, research oriented, and which has got substance. And that substance will only come from academia. It cannot come from small term projects or small term research, which the industry can provide. What the industry, on the other hand, what the industry brings in is real time needs from what's happening in real world, and also it provides for instance where um, a requirement of which has to be um, you know which can proliferate to the masses, which can make a substantial inroads into what the society at large needs. That is something that bring. So there is a amalgamation of both these forces which can bring about a change in the society, and that's what we believe in. Having said that, I would like to now focus my talk and my speech over here on COP26 and what it means for India. And we had quite a bit of things that happened in COP26. COP26 was one of those COPs which was much hyped about because we are all feeling the so-called heat. One thing I have to tell you is that what I noticed over here is that it's IT Roorkee and all professors over here, we do have a very funny bone in some way. So I would like take it forward and say that we really actually the whole world felt the heat for the first time, and I think global warming, whatever is happening, was felt by industry. It was felt by communities. It was felt by countries, and we finally woke up and committed to a carbon neutrality roadmap to 2070. I think that's next. That's what happened. But there were quite a few instances which took place. Article 6, as we all know, is a carbon markets related article in the Paris Agreement, and this finally saw the fruition. We are going into an implementation phase which will bring in some amount of finance for both for climate related projects. Not necessarily again adaptation, but it definitely brings in for emission reduction some kind of finance. Nations have agreed to be more ambitious to curb emissions. I don't know whether we are ambitious enough, but all the countries moving towards 2050 target of having the global warming below 1.5 degrees centigrade is something that we saw. And the entire commitment of 2070, there are two ways of looking at it. Some say it is too late, and some say that at least it was done. So that what it means or signifies is it gives a roadmap, it gives a message to so that every department or every ministry or every state or every city looks at it as something that they need to move towards. That means there is a thought process built in, there is a momentum which is built in, there is a it's like a spark which has been ignited which can be taken forward for all those departments and all those ministries which need to have their own roadmaps, and that will all commensurate to the target of 2070 which we have on. In this, what will happen is there will be some who will take lead, who will do more than what is required, and that will instigate competition, that will instigate more awareness, that will instigate more amount of action on the ground. I think that is what it has done. Of course, a lot of countries have talked about phasing out coal-based power projects. Now, that is something which coal was singled out in the scope. We know that methane is much more, much more worse than coal in terms of global warming potential, and that's something that was also talked about later on in the later days of COP, but more emphasis was put on coal. I mean, it's been one of the topics which was deliberated upon. Several countries and car makers, auto OEMs have said that they will change to electric vehicle fully, and this is something that we all in this room will are seeing it happen everywhere. Probably whatever we own as cars today will be the last fossil fuel based car which we'll be using it, because obviously the countries and the country, India as a country as well as the states have come up with policies which already the electric vehicles are at par. For when you go and buy, they are already at par with certain vehicles are at least at par with the diesel-based vehicles, and then this is something that we will see more and more happen, and that's something. And there was a lot of funding related, thought process for for mitigation problem, on more so on the mitigation side. I think the next slide talks more about it. What we also saw is basically the funding landscape is moving towards more funding towards mitigation projects and not less towards adaptation. This can be seen very much as 571 billion committed for mitigation projects, and we do have only 46 billion for adaptation. And most of this funding which is available for adaptation is more so from the aspect of providing a loan and not grants. Whereas there are certain situations wherein you need this adaptation finance to be a grant rather than a loan. And again, the paying capability of these projects and how these projects have been designed is also needs to be looked into. And then insurance, which is a favorite subject, which also comes into the picture, because you do have climate-related insurance products which are coming in and backing that loan which has been taken, and how do you interact with that, and it all further burdens these projects in some way or the other. So probably a good mix of grant and loan is required, and a further mix of this mitigation and adaptation related projects to come together, and where co-benefits are to be looked into. I think that is where the entire focus lies as of today. Even there is a larger focus of it, and we've as ENY, we are fortunate enough to have Green Climate Fund as our direct client, and we are a part of 28 institutions under the communities of practice. We have been empaneled with them. We work along with them on several sectoral guides and other aspects, and we have we've written a full-fledged funding proposal also for the government of Bangladesh for greening their entire textile sector. That is something which basically what we have tried to also deliberate with them is that how can these projects, more and more such projects can come into play. These are still talks undergoing, and the numbers just reflect what's happening. It's still mitigation which is getting the more money. But we will see that this is something that has is going to change the future. So yeah, I think from India perspective, we do have quite a lot of you know in the recent years we've seen disasters happening, and that's where the entire focus also is on now getting that funding towards those and inculcating the adaptation related features into other projects. So what was discussed on adaptation? If you look at it, next. So if you look at it, there was a global goal on adaptation which was talked about. There was talk about scale which is needed for that kind of projects, which is at least it needs to double. So there is an intent which was shown in this particular call, and there was also some new pledges of around 960 million, which is close to around 1 billion. But this is something that happened, and there was a spark created. Again, I'm talking about that spark, but there was some intent provided for adaptation and resilience. But what didn't happen was the entire. There was a lot of talk about loss and damage, but there was nothing that came out as an arrangement which was substantial. There is the emphasis on disaster risk management and building resilient infrastructure. This was not which was highlighted. Although we see that a lot of projects which are coming from the multilaterals and bilaterals is coming with some aspects of environment into it when you talk about infrastructure, but that is not coming reflecting. It just falls short of what needs to be done actually. So infrastructure which is climate resilient is expensive at any given point in time. But the whole world has to wake up to that and do something about it. It falls down short now to only environmental and social governance, which is ESG, and it falls short only to that extent that is required as assurance that you have taken care of what is as is basis. There are no studies which on climate vulnerabilities which are undertaken. There is nothing that goes into the infrastructure which makes it much more resilient from a long-term basis. And all of infrastructure that we are creating today is including renewable energy projects, or you take anything that you do is for a longer term. It's at least a 25-year-old asset that you're creating. And if it's not climate resilient, then it's not going to do what it's meant to do. If it has to curb emissions, it has to curb emissions for 20 years, not or 25 years, not. But if disaster on the same asset which is curbing emissions can also be affected by climate change, and it could relate to lesser cash flows and other vulnerabilities. So that is something which the world has to wake up to understand and recalibrate what they're trying to do. Again, there was 70 billion is required, and we have only 1 billion on the table. So there is quite a lot of disparity. Next. We do have our own national action plan on climate change, and we do have our own national adaptation finance. And basically, from this, we have spent around 847 crores. Now, if you look at all the projects and how they have been funded and how they are also getting financing and where they are getting implemented, we also have some heroes. So we do have like Bihar, we have some states, I don't want to name certain states and make them, but we do have certain states which have got more financing. So we need to look at it from a holistic way also, that why are these communities or why are these states which are getting all the financing, and these are finance friendly projects, finance friendly states as they say, because it's easier to implement those projects in those areas. But why? Because the stakeholders are good. Because, but not necessarily that that place only needs that finance. There are several other places where there are not the right kind of stakeholders, but not people who don't understand this, but they need is the most. So we need to find that bridge that gap between those people who are losing out on these opportunities, understand if there are certain projects which can be taken up to the ministry at the center and state level, which can bring in that aspect. So that is the kind of work which we all need to do as a team to bring about change in India, and that's exactly what we are working on now. Next. I brought some projects basically from perspective of watershed development, and we were just speaking about it today, how it has got funded, and yes, it is one of those projects which can get funding, a lot of funding. Smart agriculture is another such such aspect for adaptation. Basically, we all need to adapt, and all our ways of living also need to adapt to climate change, and this is something agriculture also needs to adapt. We are an agriculture based nation, so we need to bring in that aspect of it, and all of us, we need to also see how we can diversify this. And again, when you talk about adaptation projects, we need to bring in the element of mitigation as well. So if we are looking at climate smart agriculture, we need to see how we can use renewable energy, how we can use solar. So like having only one way of looking at things, you need to see both the ways to see how both adaptation and mitigation can come in, and then we can proliferate, because then that will become a full-fledged project. It will have the impact which needs to be created, and it can also has a higher value of funding also, which we would get. So we need to see how to balance that factor in. Next. So what we have for the future? So what the COP26 had outcomes for India? We see that I also already talked about the GCF financing, which is again a related thing, that the aspect of funding, which I also talked about. It talks about adaptation, and we need to build in those aspects, and there are some commitment from the countries. There will be more to coming in for adaptation and climate resilience. We will talk about how to bring in aspects of mitigation, and then that is something that we need to go. But what needs further attention is basically from the aspect of loss and damage, which we need to create probably a thought leadership on how that construct can come about, and that's something that really would matter a lot, because from the perspective, if we are creators of that construct, then it could also flow in. Probably then we can reach out to the stakeholders, the policymakers through those thought leadership papers. That is something that we can look at, and a concrete source of financing, adaptation funding, and we need all the developed nations to pledge for 100 billion. Although we talk about carbon neutrality, we also need to look at how there could be a bilateral funding for adaptation finance as well. Not only why only carbon markets, there can be adaptation related markets as well, and that is something that we need to look into. There are a couple of standards which also look at that aspect, like the gold standard and other standards, but we need to look into how they can be roped in to understand if markets can be created for adaptation and climate resilience. That's one subject which we can take up as a industry, academia, research, or a paper, thought leadership paper. So lots of ideas. I'm very excited. We as a team, and Tanya, are very excited for having come here and for this particular thing. And we really feel that we will take it forward in a much more structured way. So it should not just end here, but we will move into further collaborative steps. Post this meeting, we will have a separate meeting and then we can talk out the future. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. If there are any questions from the audience. Any questions from the audience? Okay. So now we'll move forward. Thank you so much, sir, for highlighting the part of India's progress on climate change and the long-term solutions. Now I'd like to invite Professor Mohammed Mukherjee, former head of Center of Excellence in Disaster Mitigation and Management, to give a talk on role of center and SADRI in facilitating climate change and disaster policies and practices. Very good afternoon to Professor Manoranjan Parida, Professor Manish Shikhande, and other colleagues, and EY, where he is sitting. Yeah, Mr. Ashish and Ms. Tania. To Sumit on behalf of our center. So it's a warm, very good afternoon to all of you, and we really look forward. Today, at the end of this discussion, we are going to have one MOU, which is really going to be very important for the center. And I believe it is also going to be important for the institute as well. Because any MOU, when it is really going to be active, it will happen when the verticals of it, like common connect, compatibility, complementarity, and collaboration, that attitude is going to be there. And I believe what you discussed right now, that simply goes with that. Not only center, as Professor Parida said, our inter-campus is there, so it will be a very strong opportunity for the IIT Roorkee also to be part with you in many projects, and not only projects that I will come. Before I go forward, I need not forget to mention the very special role played by Professor Subir Sen. He is the instrumental into today's this MOU thing. His persistent effort has brought EIY today on IIT Roorkee campus. So thanks to Subir. A very small, brief journey of center I would like to place in front of you because it may help EY to understand how COE has evolved. As rightly pointed out by Sumit, I cannot forget Professor D.K. Paul, who was the person whose vision actually brought together, and he and his group understood rather the strength of the campus. We had so many important departments who can be a very strong factor for resilience of the country. So maybe from that particular background only, this concept came up. And at that time, the hazard was the focus, hazard management, because you have already been associated with our campus to a bit. We have wonderful departments like earthquake, unique. No one in the country can really boast of this particular department. We have the hydrology, we have civil, that is the master of this campus. So we have many this type of strong departments. So those department faculty, they could come together, they can really deliberate, they can deliver something for the country's risk resilience. At that time, it was not risk resilience, it's a disaster mitigation, because we were really in the regime of Hyogo framework. So we were really doing that, and architecture planning, management, humanities, these people were also brought into, earth science. So these people gradually, all of us, we came together, and the center also evolved. It started with research at that time. Gradually, master program was introduced, and from the hazard, our lens was quite open. We came towards the risk. And when we started understanding the risk, we started understanding hazard.
vulnerability, coping capacity. So all those partner departments, they could understand how best they can contribute. So that is the strength of the center, that we don't only, though we are in an IIT campus, IIT platform, but we can really boast of a multidisciplinary in a true sense, where vulnerability as well as coping capacity, everything is addressed, like how we are doing the hazard identification. So science, technology, community, everything is now being, I will say, getting their due to a great extent. So we can say that Sendai framework, we are really being able to catch up with that. And with time, as we understand that disaster cannot be discussed, standalone process, climate change, you have to include. Without climate change induced extreme events, we cannot keep on discussing the risk of the community. So gradually, we are also progressing a lot now. Hydromet and other disasters are coming into the forefront. So I will say that our center is a very dynamic one. It is having maybe very small number of faculty, but the people, the faculty, as Professor Parida mentioned, they are very much committed. So they come forward because we don't get any extra privilege to be associated with this center. We all who come from our parent departments, we have to do our duties there. Yeah, Ranjana is here. She is the person from the biotech. So during this Corona period, also we had done wonderful training programs. She was part to that. I would now like to mention already human resources have been discussed, the faculty. So I can always stress on that many different type of projects, both the faculty side as well as UI side, you people can think of. We can really have a good discussion and we can bring wonderful projects in our fold. Our scholars, with that, we started our center and their asset, as Professor Parida said, and I fully, and Shika Manish also mentioned that, I fully endorse that. We are really looking for the action-oriented research now, very much. So I think with the presence of EY in certain projects will again further help us towards that. And our students, our master students come through the gate. They come from, again, many different disciplines, and they come and they go through a very common and some variated subjects. So the internship will be a very important part, which has been highlighted already, the placement internship. So those will be very interesting. We will look forward the role of EY into that. And our staff, the center has a wonderful office under the leadership of Tahir that works quite nicely. So I don't think you will face any problem with paper moving from one table to another table. So I think that's my experience, and I know that Sumit will also endorse it. Now let me talk about our physical assets. Central facility. That is the advantage of any IIT campus. So we have several facilities which can be on offer if EY is interested to do some common program with us. Training program, we have talked about also executive training programs, certified professional certificate program. And I know that Professor Parida will endorse it, that you can also go to our Greater Noida campus, which can make it more interesting for you people. But we also prefer our own campus, which is fully equipped to do all this. We would also like to have certain, show you later on our own facility within our center. We do a lot of work, not me, I come from architecture planning, but a lot of other faculty colleagues of mine, they work a lot with data. So data management, data analysis, remote sensing, drone. So technology, you can really, okay, I hope you will be really happy to work with us a lot. And early warning system that is already there. So you can always have a look. I will suggest you to take out some time. And we are very much interested. If EY is with us, we would like to go for many such innovation-oriented projects. It may be small training program, hackathon, whatever you feel like. Because that will make our student, not only center student, but our campus student, Last time when we have done, we have gone beyond our institute also. Professor Parida remembers he was there in the final program. We are done with one Japan university, Indo-Japan lab of KO. So that was a wonderful program. So those are the things we will be very happy to have you as our partner into that. And last thing I would like to talk about, okay, that is the Saturn. South Asia Alliance of Disaster Research Institutes. This is a very new initiative. I would like to thank our director, Professor A.K. Chaturvedi, who has given us this particular approval. On the basis of that approval, now this SATRI, South Asia Alliance, it's a regional alliance which looks at the most disaster-prone zone of the world. And that is hosted on the ITR platform in the COEDMM. Professor Parida was the approval of the origin of the space. Professor Manish Shikhande is part of the BOD. Professor Emil Sharma, Sumit is the co-chair of that. We have 5 working groups. Under that, we have 8 member countries, other than the 5 South Asian countries, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, India, Sri Lanka. We have 4 countries other than this, that is China, Taiwan, Japan, and UK. And we have institutional members, we have individual members. Right now we have total 50 members into it. It's very slow, 1 year, but going very nicely. We have 5 working groups there, 1 working group. In each group, multi-country partners are there. It's institution as well as the individual members. One group is looking at the geotechnical, another group is looking at the hydromet. Sumit is part of that one. And the third group, Subir is the lead coordinator of that group that is looking at the critical infrastructure. So you may be of interest of all 5 groups rather, because the 4th group talks about the community, how to reach community, how to really work with community. That is the group. So the experts who are having that type of background, they have shown interest to work in that group. And the 5th group is the nature-based solution, where I am part of it. So these are the 5 groups right now. We are working like that, and we are also having a few initiatives. Recently, we had our annual general body meeting, first time, and we could really place some of our activities, what we had done in last 1 year. One very interesting development I would like to share here, that Springer Japan has agreed to go with the SADRI book series. So that is one good thing, because many institutional partners are there. So we would like to really go forward with that. And as I said, regional activities. So if EY is interested, so IIT Roorkee COEDMM will offer you definitely a very strong platform to work within India and beyond India. So with that, I would like to say thanks that you are here to come this far. That's wonderful. We would really look forward for having a working MOU. Thanks. Thank you so much, ma'am, for encouraging words and calls to support to the center. I now request Mr. Ashish Kulkarni from ENY and Professor Manish Rikhande, Dean's Rep, to sign the agreement towards academia and industry partnership between IIT Roorkee and ENY. I'd like to invite Professor Manoranjan Parikh.